What's up, guys? It's your boy Vance, aka Gain City, and I'm back with another video. And today we'll be talking about, fear. Whether it's fear of losing, fear of, thinking about what the people say about you. Like, who cares? It's your life, man. Like, fear is only a four-letter word, man. Let it only be that. Don't let it dictate your life. Don't let it run your life. Fear is one of those things that, and it's actually kind of funny, but a lot of people don't even realize what their fear, or even know what their fear is. A lot of people have this fear of certain things, and then when you ask them about it, they can't explain it. And the funny thing is like, or it's like a fear that everybody else has. They fear it because this person fears it, or this was this person's fear, so it's my fear too. It's like one of those things where if you're going after something great and people kind of, talk it down, or, kind of be like, no, just do this. So then you just listen because you're just a follower, rather than saying like, no, freak you. I'm going to take this risk and go after what I want to do. If this is what you want to do, you go and do it. Stop listening to other people. If that's not their goal, they don't understand it, but it's your goal. It's like with me, what I'm going after, I don't really have anybody that's like immediate, like family, friends, stuff like that around me that are doing what I'm doing. Nobody's doing what I'm doing, and that's the fun part. I am that person that is going through all the trials and error, learning, getting through it, failing, but getting better, failing, getting better. It's over and over again, but it's people that, that don't know what I'm going through, think they know what I'm going through. They don't, because they never experienced it, It's like one of those things where, when people say, oh, like you say, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And then, and each day go by, you're not doing it. They think that they're right. But in reality, their way of measuring it is days, when yours is, decades, couple months, this and that, They might be right now, but the more you do it, the better you get. The more, when you do accomplish that goal, you're gonna prove them wrong. And technically speaking, you just taking action on it, whether you're failing or whatever, you're still doing more than what the heck they're doing. They're not doing nothing. They're just judging you because it's easy. It's easy to judge other people rather than doing the work and, going after it themselves. It's easy to judge. It's easy to sit back and watch everybody else live their lives, do all these great things while they're just sitting on the couch, bull crapping, or like I said, just not doing nothing productive, not doing anything with their lives, but just sitting back, kind of living their life through other people. It's easy to do that. It's comfortable. You can do that. But when it comes to you going after something that's bigger than you, that's something that is kind of hard to explain, but you understand what it is, and then, trying to explain it to average people and all that, they're not going to understand it. Because at the end of the day, too, it's not their goals. It's not what they're trying to do. It's your goals, Only you can understand it. You kind of have to put these things together, kind of piece it as you go, accomplish the goal, accomplish the dream that you want to do, and then everybody see the results, and they be like, oh, dang, okay, that's what he was doing. All them times when he said he had to do this or she had to do that, she was actually doing this. Okay, dang, now it makes sense. They see the results. Because at the end of the day, it sucks how we live in a life where, like, it sucks, but it makes sense in a way. But we live in a life where it's all about the flashy cars. When somebody, like, say you have a millionaire out there that has a flashy car or whatever, big house, people just kind of gravitate to listening to them, rather than somebody who's in that path, literally going through the hard struggles and all this stuff, and is progressing and seeing all these results. But they won't listen to them because they don't have the end goal. When in reality, the person who's looking at you didn't even freaking start. Most people like that, the average people, they ain't even starting. They're just like, oh, well, this guy, he's up here, and then this guy, he's just starting out. I'm gonna listen to the guy that's already up there. Okay, you listen to him, you're still not gonna do nothing about it. It's hard to relate to somebody who's already at the top, rather than somebody who's literally doing it as we speak. Because you could be like, dang, most of them are. You're going to relate a little bit more with them because they're actually going through it, rather than somebody that's just already up there, kind of chilling, already accomplished their goals and dreams, and kind of, receiving the, living off the rewards and stuff of their hard work. Not saying that they're, not about nothing, but Me personally, I love listening to people's story who's actually going through the hard stuff, the hard times to become, the great or whatever, because it's just something in them, that's, like I said, they're in that transition, rather than somebody that's already at the top. It's like that saying that they say, the wolf or whatever, but it's something about like, being like on a mountain, climbing that mountain. Yeah, they say like the wolf climbing the mountain is gonna have more, more work ethic, more, more wanting to, accomplish their goals rather than the one that's already at the top, hungry, being hungry and stuff like that. And it's like, it makes sense, it's like people who are, they kind of get satisfied, which nothing's wrong with it when you have achieved your goals and all that, but even then it's still good to push yourself rather than, whether that's, like I said, still progressing to get better or just passing down your knowledge, passing down that mindset of yours to help other people. You're still doing something productive. And that's one of the things where it's like that whole selfless kind of have to come out, and that never stay satisfied, keep going. Whether you're at the top, it's still work to do. It's still work to be done. It's still things that you can challenge yourself to be better. We all can, like I said, we're all learning. We all can learn no matter how old you are, no matter if you're this age or whatever, whether it's a younger person that might know a little bit more than you, just listen. You might learn some things. You're probably going to learn some things. And that's the thing what's wrong with most people too. They think, because they're older than somebody or they, have this type of background, that they can't learn from somebody that don't have the background, but actually have really good freaking advice. Because 9 out of 10, they probably experienced it or seen someone that, went through something. And that could have been that message that that person that's up there needed to get to the next level. That's why I said, you're always coachable. It don't matter about what status you are. It don't matter about, who you are. It don't matter at all, man. We all can learn. It's always good to be coachable and, being able to get past, whatever that rock or whatever it is in your way, Because at the end of the day, man, fear is only going to be that weakness or whatever as long as you make it. Your weakness can easily turn into a strength. That could be your strongest thing. And strengths typically can sometimes be people's weaknesses too. If you know that you have a weakness or, something that you fear, do something about it. Try to get better. Try to learn it and try to work on getting better. Try not to be, scared of whatever the heck you're scared of, Whether it's, like I said, people that, care about what people say. Okay, cool. Keep doing, because like me, I live my life. I do not care about what people say at all. Because I'm going to do what I'm going to do and I'm going to succeed. And I've done that. That's the thing with me. It's like people can say this and that and this. And it's like me, I have results to back what the heck I'm talking about and what I do, based off of other people's experience, people I've helped. Like, it's like, to me, like I said, I see it as common sense. I get, and everybody else doesn't see it as common sense. But then that's my goal, to try to help people, see it that way, rather than going through trials and error and just kind of saying like, no, it's not going to work. I only know this way. I'm going to keep going this way. And it's like, no, that's not the way. You have to learn that there is other ways. There is ways to get help. There is ways to be better. There is, other ways out there to progress in whatever the heck you're trying to get, do in life. But at the end of the day, you have to do the work, man. You have to do the work. I mean, there's no shortcuts. There's no, like, just do the work, man. Because it's different when something is passed to you rather than something you worked hard for. You kind of, you appreciate it a lot more when it's something that you've worked hard, when you've started, you've been through that trial and error, that, like I said, hit rock bottom, all of that good stuff. It's different. It's a different feeling. It's a different feeling. People can't tell you no, It's like one of them things where, like, like I said, it goes with the whole you going after something no matter what people are saying about you, because the aftermath, the results, the stuff behind it, rather than just listening to somebody that's probably never even done what the heck you're trying to do or based off of their experience. It's cool, it's cool to keep in mind, but everybody's experience is different. There's things out here where people will fail, but then you have people that doesn't fail, that passes it and all that. Based off their experience, they can be just talking bad about it because they failed and they gave up, rather than pushing people to be better, to, do it. Like with me, like when it comes to fitness and stuff, I'll never tell somebody like, oh yeah, you can't do that, this and that. Now I might tell people certain things to like watch out for. You might get hurt, this and that. But I'm not gonna say don't do it. I mean, if you do it, I mean, at the end of the day, a person will do what they want to do. You know? But I give you my advice on, like, you know, my experience on, like, doing this, doing that, doing this a certain way might make this happen, or what, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, you take that, you apply it, you do whatever the heck you want to do with that. You know, I might give you, like I said, that advice, but at the end of the day, you're gonna do what you want to do. You know, because your experience might be better than mine. You know, you can do it, and it's great. You know, for me, I did, you know, it just want my thing. You know, so it's like everybody's different. But like I said, at the end of the day, you have to dominate fear. You have to get over it. You can't let fear get in the way of your success, your path to wherever, you know, your goals are and all that. Fear is just something that's just going to hold you back. But it's something that you can learn and, you know, get better at it, you know, work on it, do something. Don't just, oh, it's there, I'm done, I'm gonna quit, you know, I don't want to do it because I'm afraid. It's like, no, do something about it, you know, try to overcome it. Work towards overcoming it. Whether it takes years, days, months, whatever, work toward, you know, small habits go a long way. That's the start. But at the end of the day, it starts with you. And remember, never stay satisfied, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.